Over the last few years, child psychologists have been tracking a sharp decline in cognitive functioning among adolescents. They call it brain rot, when a developing mind consumes a constant diet of short, rapid-fire, repetitive digital content. It loses the capacity to sustain attention on complex ideas. But while psychologists warn about screens and dark rooms, a parallel crisis is playing out in broad daylight. Across India, the multi-billion-dollar coaching industry treats education as a high-speed assembly line. Millions of students compete for spots in engineering and medical colleges through the JEE and NEET exams, turning their adolescent years into a grueling, isolated pressure cooker. The pressure exacts a brutal human toll. Record numbers of students are reporting severe anxiety and mental health crises, and recent exam paper leaks have triggered mass protests, exposing a system buckling under its own weight. At first glance, a teenager scrolling social media and a student grinding through 12 hours of test prep look very different. One is distracted, the other is hyper-focused. But look closer at how they process information. Both environments demand rapid pattern recognition over slow, deliberate inquiry. Without intending to, we have engineered a dual ecosystem, one recreational, one academic, that starves the developing brain of the time and space required to actually think. The prefrontal cortex is the region of your brain responsible for executive function, complex analysis, and decision-making. When a child spends hours swiping through superficial digital media, these specific neural fibers go unused. The brain adapts to the fast-paced input by skipping deep analysis altogether, letting those vital connections grow weak. Now watch what happens when that same brain enters a high-stakes coaching center. The curriculum relies heavily on what researchers call second principle heuristics. Instead of understanding the underlying physics or biology, students are drilled to memorize specific tricks and shortcuts to solve equations in seconds. The prefrontal cortex is bypassed entirely. True scientific discovery requires first principle thinking. You have to break a problem down to its most basic truths, hold the pieces in your mind, and slowly build a solution. Heuristics do the opposite. They teach the brain to quickly recognize a prompt and spit out a pre-packaged answer. The standardized multiple-choice format functions as a mass filtration tool for a country with millions of applicants and a handful of seats. It prioritizes administrative efficiency over scientific depth. The format forces educators to adopt a strict banking model, depositing isolated facts into students to be withdrawn on exam day. Whether it's an algorithm serving up a 10-second video or an exam demanding a 10-second answer, both systems exploit the same cognitive vulnerability. They reward the brain for taking the fastest possible route to a result, training the human mind to prioritize speed and pattern recognition over deep analytical understanding. For decades, an education optimized for speed and rote memorization produced highly effective technical workers. But the macroeconomic reality is shifting. Generative artificial intelligence can now recognize patterns, deploy heuristics, and write complex code exponentially faster than any human. Corporate leaders are already adjusting their hiring strategies. The consensus at global economic summits is that raw technical skills are rapidly becoming a cheap commodity. The high-value jobs of the near future require traits machines lack: empathy, curiosity, and the critical thinking skills typically developed through the humanities. Long before AI threatened the job market, visionaries warned us about treating education as an industrial process. Thinkers like Rabindranath Tagore argued that genuine learning should be a joyful, holistic pursuit, while early education reports explicitly condemned rote memorization as the literal murder of curiosity. Beyond killing curiosity, rigid evaluation structures reinforce deep social divides. As economist Amartya Sen has pointed out, high-stakes testing favors those who can afford expensive, specialized coaching, quietly ensuring that marginalized groups remain locked out of top-tier opportunities. If we continue to strip the humanities out of our STEM programs in pursuit of higher test scores, we are actively training students to compete with software on the software's terms, and that is a race the human brain will lose. Dismantling the high-stakes exam monopoly starts with distributing the cognitive load. Policymakers are currently proposing reforms that would factor in high school board exam scores, ensuring that daily classroom performance carries as much weight as a single high-pressure test. Inside the classroom, the pedagogy has to change. Moving away from endless multiple-choice drills toward project-based, inquiry-driven learning forces the brain to slow down, engage the prefrontal cortex, and practice the complex analysis it has been starved of. To guarantee these changes actually take root, national systems must submit to external benchmarking. Re-entering international evaluations like the PISA exams, which measure a student's ability to apply core concepts to real-world problems, would expose the flaws of rote learning on a global stage and force a curriculum overhaul. Ultimately, the 3-hour pen and paper bottleneck needs to be broken apart. Replacing it with adaptive, computer-based assessments over multiple stages renders coaching center templates useless because students have to actually understand the material to progress. The rise of AI and the cognitive impact of digital media are forcing us to choose which human capabilities we actually value. We have to stop engineering our children to act like second-rate machines and instead redesign our schools and our screen habits to cultivate the slow, critical, and empathetic mind that makes us human.